And then one day you come back and you land the airplane. And he says, "Hey, you did a great job." And he says, "Now you got it." He gets out of the airplane. He says, "This is the day you're going to solo. You're on your own." And you get in the airplane and you take off and you go out and you fly around a little bit and you come back and land and you're now a pilot.
Welcome to the Side Hustle Lounge. If you're looking for flexible ways to earn income, grow your mindset, and live the lifestyle you've always dreamed of, you're in the right place. So lower the lights, grab your favorite beverage, and join your host, founder of NotaryCoach.com and Amazon best-selling author of Sign and Thrive, How to Make Six Figures as a Mobile Notary and Loan Signing Agent, Bill Soroka.
Cheers and welcome to my guest this week, Richard Law. He is the founder and owner of the Society of Field Inspectors, or SOFI. Richard, I've been looking forward to our conversation this week. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing so good. Like I said, I'm looking forward to this conversation because I have so many questions about field inspections and what it does. And I know there's a lot of people in our audience that have the same questions. So before we get into too much, can you tell us what a field inspector actually is and what they do?
Yeah, field inspections is a great opportunity. It kind of fits in with other opportunities like notary signings, because when you're out, doing a notary signing maybe tomorrow afternoon, and if you can do some inspections on the way there and maybe some on the way back, you just become more efficient and you make more money.
It's like adding on like bonus revenue, right?
Yeah, you want to stay close to home, whatever you're doing, and you want to build up your volume in a small area. And again, that leads to efficiency.
Yeah.
The field service inspections covers a very large area. There's a lot of different types of field inspections out there. It should not be confused with home inspections, which are inspectors that do inspections for the buyers of real estate. Okay? These are not home inspections, but these are mainly going out into the field and making observations because you're kind of the ears and the eyes of another company that needs something done. There is no licensing requirement in any of the states, so it's easy to get into. In most cases, there's no insurance required. If you get over onto the mortgage segment of the industry, which is kind of the low pay, the problem area of the industry, there you'll find companies that require you to purchase E&O insurance, which can be quite expensive for field inspections. They'll also ask you to pay for a background check. Okay. Yeah. And so we kind of hang out in the better neighborhoods, so to speak. We hang out.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we hang out with the commercial and the insurance inspections. You need to deal with the higher quality companies that pay the higher fees, the companies that have respect for you, that treat you right, that won't send you 100 miles away for a $25 inspection. They have a little, I guess you might say, common sense on their end.
Right. Or they just appreciate the services that you bring to the table or the value you bring to the table.
Yeah, that's true. But it would be great value if you traveled 100 miles for $25. And that's not the place you want to be.
Right. In
fact, when you're out doing the lower fee stuff, you're not doing the higher fee stuff. Okay. So it's kind of eating up your time. So that's a good point. So what we do is we kind of focus on the higher quality companies, the companies that we like. I've worked for many of them myself, so I know many of the companies. And we listen to what the inspectors say. We don't want companies that are complained about.
Okay, that's really nice. So you get some feedback from the people who are actually doing the work. Can we go back a little bit too? I'd love to hear more about who hires field inspector. Like what kind of companies is this? And can you go into a little bit more about what the work actually looks like? If we don't need certification, what are we actually doing out there?
Well, the companies that are going to hire field reps provide the inspection form. There's nothing that the inspector has to create. The forms are provided. And usually this is a 1-page form, maybe 2 pages at the most, with, check the boxes, fill in the blank type entries. And the field inspector is really an observer. They're going to their property just to observe the progress of the construction. And a typical situation is you might go there the first time and the property's been graded, the land's been graded, trees have been removed if there were any. And then the under the slab plumbing has been laid in. And then also the slab has been poured. So what the inspector does is takes probably 2, 3, maybe 4 photos of the property and then just makes some short bulleted comments about the where things are right now, the progress being made. And then that's probably going to happen perhaps maybe 3, maybe 4 more times. And again, the inspector is going to be looking at things like rough and electrical, under roof next, rough and electrical, rough and plumbing, windows, doors, that type thing. And again, take some photographs and do some reporting.
And are they, does the field inspector actually inspect those for quality of work, or are they really just documenting the journey?
They're just making observations because they don't have the background or the experience to do more than that.
Perfect.
So they're making no assessment as to whether the electrical is being done in accordance with code.
Right.
For instance, they could be wiring up the clothes dryer with doorbell wire. And that's important, but there's no liability going back to the inspector on that. And also the inspector is not making any comments or certifications as to the craftsmanship. As to whether they're doing a good job or not.
Do you think that in order to be a successful field inspector, then that you need some sort of background in real estate or construction?
No, you don't. Not for that type inspection. I've done many of those myself, and all you're doing is really just making notes of what's going on and where they're at, what progress is being made. In fact, I had one inspection I did up in Fredericksburg, Virginia, where it was a commercial restaurant facility. And I went there and made observations, and no reporting other than a telephone callback was required. And I went there, I think, 4 times, maybe 5 times, and just noted where they were with the construction. Towards the end, of course, I noted that they had finished the wiring, finished the plumbing. They had a lot of commercial cooking equipment there. They had tables and chairs and that type stuff they were getting ready to install.
So who was it that hired you in that instance?
This was a field inspection company that was probably getting the work from either a regional or national bank.
Ah, okay. So the banks or the investors, it's almost like you're serving as boots on the ground for those investors that might not be in the area. So you could be their eyes, make sure that money is being spent and progress is being made.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can take another case, which is very common, is what they call a floor plan inspection, or sometimes they call it a collateral inspection. And this is where you got a dealer. It could be a John Deere dealership. It could be a marina. It could be outdoor power equipment, lawnmowers and weed whackers and chainsaws. And for something like a marina, you would go there and you would have a list of serial numbers for boats, descriptions of boats. And you would go through their facility and you would look for those boats. Actually, you would have someone help you look for the boats that was at the dealership. And you would just note that the boat was there or the boat was not there. If the boat was not there, where was it? Okay. Was it out on a demo? Were they out in the water with it and showing it to someone? Had someone put a down payment on it and was going to pick it up tomorrow, and they had it at a different facility getting it ready for pickup? So what you're doing is you're wanting to make sure that the boats are supposed to be there if they're not sold, and the boats are not in Brazil, because a company is providing the equipment and they want to make sure that they can control it, that they know where it's at. So that's what a floor plan inspection is.
That is fascinating. It almost sounds like as a field inspector, we kind of play a role in fraud prevention as well, very similar to maybe a mobile notary and loan signing agent.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of companies out there that just want to know where their stuff is. They want to make sure that someone hasn't taken off with it, or it hasn't been sold, and the dealer not reported it. Because then they're taking advantage of the company that, of course, gave them the assets.
Fascinating. What other areas are field inspectors used?
Yeah, there's an inspection out there called a sign inspection. And what you're doing there is you're going to maybe a mall or maybe a strip mall or maybe a large mall in your area. And you're going there in the evening, you're going there at night, and you're looking at their signs. Okay. Which signs are lit and which ones were not lit. Of course, the ones they want to have reported to them is the ones that are not lit, because the people, the mall managers and the mall tenants are not really reporting things like that. So they need some independent eyes to get out there and see what's got lights on it and what doesn't have lights. And usually that's done probably every couple months. And then there's a report made back saying which lights are out. They don't really care which lights are on, but which lights are out, so that maintenance people can get out there and do some repairs on the lighting.
I always wondered who was in charge of reporting those outages like that. Maybe I'm a natural at this. I always find the lights that are burned out.
Yeah, that's true. But so there's a lot of that stuff out there, and there's a lot that takes, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And then the nice thing also is you can grow your business with more training. You can get, with some limited training, you can start getting into things like commercial insurance loss control. And that's where you're going to facilities like an Olive Garden, and you're looking at commercial cooking equipment. Some of the ones I've done was Hampton Hotels, Holiday Inns. I did a BJ's up in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And again, those type properties pay much, much more, but they do require some training so that you know what's right and what's wrong when you go to the property.
Is that training is it company specific, or is that something that like Society of Field Inspectors helps out with?
Well, to get the more advanced training, we have some of that, especially in the commercial insurance loss control area. We have some training manuals, and we also have some classroom videos that go with those training manuals to describe how to do the inspection.
Okay.
And with the commercial insurance loss control, you're looking at more detailed areas. You're looking at fire sprinkler systems. You're looking at commercial cooking equipment. It could be a light manufacturing facility where you're looking at processes. You could be looking at workman's compensation rules. There's just a lot of different areas that you can grow into with more training. And then once you go through that training and start growing your business, and maybe a year or 2 years, you might start working directly for the underwriter, the insurance underwriter, and doing much more highly protected buildings and more expensive buildings. So there's a path to higher money, a lot more money, and through, very inexpensive training.
So when you first start out as a field inspector, you can start, obviously there's probably some minimum training. There's, I noticed that you guys created and curate a list of companies that will hire you in the very beginning, and you can work directly for those companies, and then you can scale yourself up and eventually work direct with these insurance companies. Is that how am I understanding correctly?
Yes, that's true. Most inspectors never go to that higher level. I'm not sure why. I have in my history. I've moved up to the higher level stuff. It's more interesting stuff for sure, and it pays much more. But there's a lot of stuff. I would say probably in the $35 to maybe $55 range. That takes about 10 minutes. It's easy to do. It's interesting work. It could be something like a business verification. I did one in Culpeper where it was a cardiovascular office, okay, right near the hospital. They were hiring some nurses. And as part of that hiring process, they needed access to get background check information. And the company that was going to give them the background check information wanted to make sure they were really a medical clinic, a cardiovascular clinic. So my job was to go there and just do the verification. So I, called them up and said, hey, I'm going to be in town in the afternoon between about 1 and 4. Can I come by and do this inspection so that you can get your background check stuff? And they said, fine, come on by. So I headed to town and I headed by the clinic, which was right in view of the hospital, and took a picture of the sign out front that said Blue Ridge Cardiovascular Clinic. I took a picture of the address on the side of the building. Walked in, talked to the administrator there, and explained that I was there for the inspection. I needed to have a picture of the container, the file that he was going to lock up this background check information in. And I needed to see that he had a key and that it would lock. So I took a picture of that. I asked if we could go to an empty examining room and I could take a picture of that just to verify that they were a clinic. And we did that. And so I left there with 4 photos. I was there maybe 10 minutes. It was a friendly inspection because they couldn't get what they wanted until I'd come in there. And that paid $45. And I remember I was on my way to Lowe's to pick up some stuff. So that was just down the street a little ways further. So like I say, it was a convenient inspection. It was easy to do. In that case, it had a very big open window, from 1 to 4. So I could be a little early or a little bit late, or in the middle.
Yeah.
And if I was doing something else, I'm not a notary, but if I was a notary, I might have 1 or 2 notary signings in town, and I could have done those also.
Yeah, it's got that flexibility, and sometimes it sounds like.
Yeah. So, we were talking before we started recording. Marketing is very important. Getting a job and doing a great job is very important. You need a backup to the backup to the backup to the backup to the backup, etc.
Yeah.
We talked about that a little bit.
Richard, if you can, let's dive in a little deeper on one of those topics, marketing in particular. I know when you and I talked on the phone, you're passionate about the marketing, building relationships, getting the word out there about your business. How does somebody grow this thing?
Well, what they do is, start out small. Okay. Make sure you're going to like it. Okay. Get out there and do a few inspections and make sure that they're kind of your cup of tea, that you like doing it, that you find it interesting, that you're making money. And what we do is we make things kind of easy. Membership in Sophie is free. We don't charge the companies, nor do we charge the field service reps to become a member. And they can simply go up to joinsophie.com and fill out a short form and become a member. The first time they become a member, we shotgun that information out to hiring companies and let them know that they're available. And if those companies have some work, they'll contact the field rep direct.
So just getting started, Richard, there's no certification process at all. What if somebody's uncomfortable starting? How do they get started? Is there just a mini course? Is there a book they can read, a guide? Like how to set expectations?
Well, there is no certification. There is no licensing. There's no state licensing. In most cases, when a company does need someone in an area, they hire them without them requiring to pay any fees to be hired. They usually, in most cases, don't need any special equipment. They can use their smartphone camera for taking photographs. And the companies provide the inspection forms. And the companies also it depends on the company, but they might get you on the phone and kind of walk you through an inspection on the phone. They might send you some videos to look at. They might have a webinar where you can be invited to a webinar and go up there and listen to an instructor, and then also have an opportunity to ask questions. And so that's pretty much the way it's done. I try to make myself available to the field reps to answer questions too. We post our telephone numbers just about every place, and we welcome phone calls, and they call us right on our cell phone or they text us.
I think that's one of the things that just blew my mind, Richard, is that you literally have your cell phone number posted all over your website. And I really appreciated that, because it sounds like people can just jump right into this thing. Just jump in
Yeah. And I'm not afraid to talk to people on the phone, and I get a lot of calls. We do offer some paid for products up at our Sophie store, but again, everything has a satisfaction guarantee. So people feel comfortable with that. That everything is guaranteed, that they'll get good value out of it. They have someone that can answer their questions and give them some advice.
Well, that's one of the reasons I reached out to you, Richard, is I've heard such great things. I know you have a stellar reputation and you're committed to helping people succeed in this. Do you think, can this be a full-time gig for people?
It can, depending on, of course, where you're located at. It's going to be easier to do in the large metropolitan areas where there's lots of people and lots of traffic. It's going to be more difficult to do in rural areas where you're kind of far away from everything going on. So if you want to do it full time, you need people, you need traffic, you need, larger metropolitan areas. There's a lot of different people that do field inspections. There's, of course, notary signing agents, there's realtors, there's appraisers, process servers, home inspectors. If you're a home inspector in Michigan, in the wintertime, things really slow down. No one's buying houses. There's 2 feet of snow on the ground. And so a lot of the home inspectors in the northern climates do field inspections in the wintertime just to kind of have a source of income. There's a lot of firemen and policemen who have, where they work a couple days at a time and then they have a couple days off and they'll do inspections. There's pastors that do it. There's people that are working at Amazon warehouse on the night shift, from midnight till 6 a.m. They're doing it during their afternoon hours. So there's a lot of...
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just going to jump in and say ride share, Uber, Lyft drivers that are all over the place anyway. It seems like this might be an easy way to add on additional value bonus income throughout the day.
Yeah, they'll do that. If they got a field inspection over near the airport or close to the airport, they'll finish that up and then sign into Uber and maybe pick up a fare at the airport.
Right.
And kind of take them back to where, an area close to where they live, and then maybe pick up some more field inspections. And the thing you want to do always is you want to kind of, create volume in a small area so that if you're going out to do field inspections, you're maybe working for 4 or 5 companies that afternoon in a small area because you want to batch things up. You kind of want to get things all pulled together, maybe on the north side of town. And usually with the field inspections, they probably give you 3 to 5 days to get them done. So you've got a pretty good size window.
So you got a nice window there. So what does building the business look like? I know we talked a little bit about training and how you can enhance that. You've got a list of hiring companies that can hire you. When you start going direct, what's that look like? Is it email campaigns? Is it networking events? Is it mailing out letters? Like, what does this look like?
Well, going direct, let's take something like commercial insurance loss control.
Yeah.
And you're not going to go direct in a month. It's probably going to be many months, maybe even a few years. And there you're looking at commercial buildings. You're looking at loss control, which is you're looking at the risk of there being a problem, a safety problem. If you're looking at fire sprinklers, you want to make sure they're maintained properly. If you're looking at commercial cooking equipment, you want to make sure all the fire suppression equipment is working fine and they have all the correct safety features in there. If they've got a gas range with a deep fryer next to it, there has to be a little wall, a little flash guard between them so that, hot grease doesn't spill over onto the gas range. And they have cleaning cycles that have to be monitored, when you have a commercial kitchen, like something in an Olive Garden. And then later on, you kind of, do a lot of inspections. And when the company likes you, they keep giving you, better paying inspections, inspections that require more experience, more expertise, and you kind of keep building up and building up. And then you get to a point where you've done a lot of these highly protected properties. And then you start marketing to insurance companies, underwriters, like maybe Hartford. And the way you get business with them is you really send them redacted copies of inspections you've done. So this is what I'm capable of doing. This is what I've done in the past. And I can do these inspections for you. And then, they'll pick you up and give you some work to do and see how you're doing. If they really like you, they'll keep sending you work. Now, the person I got my training from was a fellow named Jim Julian, who's up in New Jersey. And Jim's been doing this for a very long time. He's been doing it for decades. But, at times he's been paid by underwriters, the big companies, the insurance companies, to make trips to Europe and also over to the Pacific. And, he's been Tokyo and other places in Japan, Okinawa, Hong Kong, Hawaii, Australia, doing commercial insurance, loss control inspections on very, very highly protected properties. And they pay him a lot. I've seen some things that he's done for light manufacturing where he spent 3 days at the plant inspecting, 2 days writing it up, and was paid $8 for the report. So there's money to be made, but you don't start there on month 2 or maybe not even until year 2 to get there.
Yeah, and you brought up kind of an interesting point as well that I think is important for us because a lot of our audience might be notaries, so they're really used to having jurisdiction that's just within their state. But what I'm hearing from you is because there is no certification or licensing requirements, there's no jurisdictional issues either. You can be a field inspector anywhere.
Yeah, all 50 states use field inspectors. There's field inspectors that do work in Guam, the Mariana Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico. And there was one woman, her name Tori, down in Dallas. She flew for one of the airlines down there. And on her days off sometimes or weeks off, she'd take and get a free ride over to Puerto Rico or the Virgin Islands. And do some inspections over there, do a little vacationing, and then come back. So in her case, she had free transportation.
Yeah.
And it worked out pretty well for her.
I love that idea. Yeah.
There are also field inspectors in those areas too. So she was going there as extra. They didn't really need her. They just kind of liked her and gave her a bonus, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that. I've been trying to find a way to be a vagabond, a notary, and travel in my RV all over the United States. And that is proven to be pretty difficult. But this, on the other hand, there might be a way here.
Yeah, I think so. And, I like to watch some of the YouTube videos there. One of them is the Sailing Doodles, where they have some nice 42-foot catamarans, and they go out and they visit all these ports over there in the Caribbean or over in the Pacific, and they show how nice it is to live on a boat. And they have a good followership and following, and they make good money on that.
Yeah, yeah. That's good thinking too.
Yeah.
So speaking of income though, Richard, I wonder if, I know we don't want to promise certain income levels or anything like that, but what's a fair estimate or guess on what the income you can earn doing field inspections?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer because most people don't like to talk about what they make. Okay.
Yeah.
And especially if they're very successful with it. So the full-time people kind of keep it kind of very close to their vest on how much they're making and who they work for. And but when you get down to the part-timers, they'll talk to you primarily about how much money they make fee-wise, what kind of fees they're making, and how long it takes them to do an inspection, and how close they can stay to home.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say kind of starting out, most of the stuff is kind of, I would say probably $35 to $55 for very easy work. Okay. And what you want to do is some of that work in connection with other work. And then you also want to, like with any gig job, you want to keep your area small, and you want to build up the volume you need by working for, more customers. I don't think anyone who's a notary or anyone who is a field inspector just working for one company starting out is probably not even making any money. They may be losing money. The efficiencies start to build when you're working for more companies. And then even when you start working for more companies, and as your volume keeps going up from more companies, you can start reducing your service area. In other words, you can start working closer to home once you build up your volume by working for more companies. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So your costs go down because you're not spending so much time on the road and mileage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So we gave them a good base range of that $35 to $55. When, if it's after 12 months, 24 months, whatever it might be, when they start working direct, do you have an average of what that direct commercial fee might be?
Well, I think if you go up to, the best way to look and get a real good answer is go up to some of the hiring websites, the recruiting sites, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And just look at commercial insurance loss control. Commercial insurance loss control, up at something like Indeed, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it'll show you what insurance companies are willing to pay to get that work done to employees, okay? So what they would pay an employee who's maybe working full time for them because they have a lot of volume, that salary is going to probably be about the same as what they would pay for an independent contractor. And I think when you go up there and look at what they're advertising for, I think you'll see the numbers are very good.
Yeah, I would imagine so, especially if they're flying everywhere, huh?
Well, some of them will. Getting to that level, you've got to be very good, And some people don't like to travel. Some people don't care about going over to Europe or Pacific because you're going to be working hard too.
Sure.
It's not going to be a vacation. It's going to be a trip over there to, do business.
Well, let's talk about that a little more. One of the questions I love to ask on these side hustles, which are it could be a total business venture all on its own, but there is work involved. It's not always, the rainbows and unicorns. So in your experience, Richard, who fails at this business?
I think the people that just they don't have a high goal. They're kind of afraid to get started. Okay. They're afraid to kind of jump in and do the job. And they also need to know how to do the marketing. They need to get out there and beat the bushes and contact companies and ask for work. I think that's very important. I notice with both notary signing agents and also with field inspectors that they're kind of afraid at the beginning, and that scares a lot of them away. And there are those that are not afraid, and they just really jump in there and do the marketing and just build a tremendous business.
Yeah.
And that probably applies to almost everything. And I don't know, I tell people sometimes, if you really want to build up your confidence, get a pilot's license, learn how to fly. Because when you go through pilot training, for, say a private pilot, you go through the ground school and you learn what to do. And then you get in an airplane with an instructor. Okay. And then you go out flying. And he shows you different techniques and different things to do. And you have some different emergencies. You practice, you stall the airplane and learn how to recover from a stall. And then one day you come back and you land the airplane. And he says, "Hey, you did a great job." And he says, "Now you got it." He gets out of the airplane. He says, "This is the day you're going to solo. You're on your own." Okay. And you get in the airplane and you take off and you go out and you fly around a little bit and you come back and land and you're now a pilot. Okay. And, you could have crashed, on takeoff or on landing, but you knew what you were doing and you didn't. And you built up your confidence and you went through all the different emergencies that could come about and you handled them well. So you got to kind of do that with things like notary signings and field service inspections. Get out there and get some ground school and then get some training with someone like yourself, that knows how to do it. And then let them go out and solo, okay? But no one's going to crash and kill themselves on takeoff or landing with a notary signing or a field inspection.
Exactly right.
It's just not going to happen, okay?
That's such a good point. And I think I heard a quote once that seems to apply right here, is that experience isn't just a teacher, it's the only teacher. And I think you have to just trust yourself that you can figure this out, get the counsel you need, get the guidance, the training, and do it. That brings me, you just mentioned flight school, and I love that analogy because you are a retired naval flight officer. You retired as a commander. So I'm curious, how did field inspections even come into your life? How did you decide that this was the fit for you and you were going to create an entire business around it?
Well, I guess it kind of came about by accident or something close to that. I was in the Navy and I flew for 20 years and I really enjoyed it. And then when I left the service, I worked I was a system engineer also. And I worked for companies like Computer Sciences and worked on defense communication systems. I also went to a company called E-Systems and worked there. And when I was in the Navy, I was involved with signals intelligence collection also. And so, we were listening in on the enemy, the Russians, the Chinese, the Libyans, just about everybody. And so when I left that business, I decided I'd been working behind green doors in classified areas for so long. I wanted to do something else. And while I was working, I built up a real estate business and had a real estate broker's license. And then when I was out doing real estate, I noticed that some of the foreclosure properties needed some work on them. So I got involved and did some property preservation. And part of that was also doing some inspections, but I learned to get away from residential mortgage inspections and move to the commercial inspections. They were just, higher quality inspections. And so that's how I got started. And it worked out good because I was doing real estate and like say in the winter, things will slow down and I do some field inspection work. And I just kind of worked as hard as I wanted to, and worked up in Fairfax, Virginia, primarily, which is a very densely populated area. So there was always work. There was always something to do. And there was always money to be made.
I wonder if you can talk about some of your experiences. Earlier, you referenced with the medical center that it was a friendly appointment because they needed you to be there so they could get what they wanted. What would we consider as an unfriendly appointment?
Well, the unfriendly stuff is really knocking on doors. Okay. When you knock on a door, you don't know what's on the other side of the door. Okay. And today we've got, when it comes to the mortgage segment, you've got a lot of people that are not paying their mortgage. They're behind on their mortgage. They're delinquent on their mortgage. And in the mortgage segment, you have some of the big, what I call mortgage order mills, sending out field inspectors and paying them $3, $4, or $5 to knock on a door and ask a delinquent homeowner to call the bank. And there are a lot of tough times in the U.S. today. And there's been a lot of cases you read about. If you go up to the Facebook groups and look at some of the groups like occupancy field inspections and some of those, you'll read all the horror stories, of people. One inspector writes, I'm shot at, or not shot at, but some threatened with a weapon just about every other week now. People have said that their phones have been grabbed and taken away from them. People have gone out to their car and grabbed their GPS off the dash. It's just not a good place to be doing a delinquency interview where you're going to someone's home. And in some cases, they even want you to go in the backyards and take photographs. So you look at a situation, a delinquent borrower's home, they're watching Netflix, they're trying to be not so upset because they can't pay their mortgage through no fault of their own because they lost a job. And then all of a sudden somebody pops up on the security camera walking in their backyard taking photos. So that's not a good place to be.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun at all.
I mean, I should start it out. It's not a good place to be because I don't pay anything.
Right.
The rest of it is just more things you probably shouldn't even tell you. It probably upset you.
Well, I think it's really important that we talk about this because I think there's probably a sector listening that may have heard some negatives about field inspection based on these delinquency interviews. And I think it's important that we share that that's not what this business is all about. In fact, the tone as we've been going through this is that you're advocating not to play in that pool, that there's so much other bigger, better business within the field inspection community.
Well, we do. And we do that through our directory, our National Field Service Directory. We just list in there the companies that are filtered, the good companies, the companies that people like, that pay pretty well. And we purposely exclude, those mortgage inspections that I talked to you about because they can get you in trouble real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been so enlightening to me, Richard. I learned so much from you. And for those that are interested in learning more about field inspector services, you can visit fieldinspector.com or you can visit the VIP lounge at SideHustleLounge.com, the VIP room. I'll have direct links to Sophie, to Richard with his cell phone number and his email address, as well as links to his websites with all of those incredible resources. Richard, anything that you'd like to leave us with today?
Well, I want to thank you for the invitation. Your name comes up quite a bit. I've talked to a lot of notaries that are going to become field service inspectors, and they talk about where they get some of the best training for notary signings, and your name comes up a lot. Okay.
Oh.
And so people don't say good things unless they really mean them. Okay.
True.
And so I think that's important. I may one day become a notary signing agent myself, and I kind of know where to go to get some training.
Well, right back at you. Yeah, right back at you. You got my wheels turning on field inspections too.
Yeah, we'll talk discounts later on.
For sure. Yeah. All right, Richard. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It has been a true pleasure having you on the show. And I know that there's so many people listening here that will be joining Sophie. And again, that to just join Sophie is completely free. So you can visit www.joinsophie.com.